definitely need a striker. You know, we scored, 44 goals last season, which is just a ridiculously poor return.
Now the Sesko deal is going to come down to whether the price drops, because Leipzig still want in excess of 80 million euros. Manchester United's valuation is much closer to 70 million euros. But I get the impression this is a big week in the pursuit of a number 9.
Is it on the table that Man United have an opportunity to sign Ollie Watkins, or at least in for him?
If the stars align and Villa either have their valuation met or alternatively bring in a replacement, not for sale might not mean not for sale.
I think a midfielder is imperative. I think someone who can really stabilise. There does need to be some time for the attackers to reserve energy for the attacking.
What Bruno Fernandes does is prove that no matter what the situation, no matter the manager, no matter where you ask me to play, no matter who's struggling for confidence, I will do my job.
Bruno Fernandes does not fit into the Ruben Amorim system.
There's a refreshing directness to Cunha's game, isn't there? There's, which, look, we've lacked, and it's good to see.
You go, we've upgraded. What I am hearing as well here on the ground is that the training is rigorous.
Hello and welcome to Inside Devils, sponsored by MUTV on Sky. A must for Man United fans to watch every pre-season fixture live and exclusive. Watch anytime, anywhere, T's and C's apply. And boy, oh boy, have we got plenty to get through today as Ruben Amorim's side kicked off their US tour on Sunday afternoon. And a lot has happened in the transfer market since we last recorded as well. So joining me in the studio is talkSPORT reporter and huge Man United fan, it's Anil Kanola. And over in Chi-Town, in the Windy City, I'm pleased to say, we've got Flex, Mr. Inside Devils himself down the line. How are you, Flex?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on the show. Thanks for inviting me.
It's Mr. Inside Devils himself down the line. How are you, man? You're all good. What's the vibe over there?
I'm good. I'm a little bit tired, of course. In New Jersey, it's +5 or -5, should I say. And then you get an extra hour when you travel out to Chicago. So I'm 6 hours behind you guys. So it's a bit tiring, but actually it's good because you can get up, get your bits early done for the UK stuff, and then you're busy at it. Here, but the vibe's good. The vibe's good here. You know, I've caught up with the players quite a few times. They're in good spirits. You know, well, I'm sure we're going to talk about the performance against West Ham, of course. But you know, every time, you know what it is? Our support around the world, right? It does remind you. You know, sometimes you need reminding, obviously, that we're massive because we've had a difficult year and it's been so hard and so negative. It's not until you get maybe out of that bubble of going to the games every week in the UK and step out into the global side of things and just seeing how happy fans are to see these players for the first time in their lives ever, regardless of what's gone on in the season, regardless of what's on the pitch, who we're going to buy, transfers, all of these things, just the purity of just being a Manchester United fan. And it hits me every single year, whether that's in Asia, whether that's in the Americas, or in Europe, it's brilliant. So yeah, from that perspective, the vibe's great, guys.
Do you know what? And it's so unsung as well because we recently learned we got a bigger attendance than the Club World Cup final for a friendly. So Manchester, you know what I mean? So I'm hearing what you're saying. Manchester United, we're still, of course, no doubt about it, one of the biggest clubs in the world. Anil, going back to UK time, how are you getting on? How are you feeling about the pre-season, everything that's going on, that result against West Ham?
Yeah, I think, look, firstly, pleasure to join you. Always an honour to talk Manchester United, of course. I think it's just the beauty of football, isn't it? You can have quite literally the most awful season with so many things to be disappointed about. But the moment the football's over, the moment that pre-season starts, you see all the nice images and all the great content out on tour. And, of course, a couple of the new players. Of course, we would like to see a couple more go through the door. But, you know, to see the likes of Cunha and Mbeumo, you know, integrate within the squad, I think it does really fill Manchester United fans with a bit of hope and optimism, of course, ahead of the season. So, yeah, I think it is good vibes. Let's just hope that continues for the rest of the new season, my friends.
I'm with you. Look, we start to believe again, don't we, as soon as pre-season kicks off. Now, Man United's hunt for a new number 9 continues, and we've had some big news regarding Benjamin Sesko come to surface yesterday. Here to provide us with the latest is, of course, our very own superstar. I'm really glad to say Ben Jacobs joins us. Ben, how are you, sir? You okay? Thanks for joining us once again.
Everything is good. A crazy summer, a busy summer, and one very much framed around centre forwards.
Yeah, exactly that, to be honest with you. Now, what's happening? I mean, we talk about this quest for Sesko. We're getting updates. He wants United. No, he wants Newcastle. Let's get grounded for a second and get your take on it. What is your understanding on this transfer and everything around it?
Yeah, my understanding is that Manchester United had held internal conversations to whittle down a shortlist that had 3 leading names on it. Maybe the last time we spoke, in Ollie Watkins, Benjamin Sesko and Nicholas Jackson. About 7 days ago, they decided that Jackson doesn't look feasible. And I think the only thing that would change that is if Chelsea come calling for Alejandro Garnacho, which is not beyond the realms of possibility, but also that Jackson price drops and significantly. So nothing active there. And that leaves 2, Benjamin Sesko and Ollie Watkins. Last week, again, talks were held with the Watkins side and with Aston Villa, even though some Villa sources tried to downplay it. And Manchester United asked the question and were told 60 million and a Villa preference to keep. So now, if Villa got a replacement or that price was to drop, Manchester United might go in that direction. Otherwise, Benjamin Sesko is still on the radar. Remember, 12 months ago, Manchester United made a pitch. Sesko decided to stay at Leipzig. Arsenal and Chelsea were there at that point. Now the Sesko deal is going to come down to whether the price drops, because Leipzig still want in excess of 80 million euros. Manchester United's valuation is much closer to 70 million euros. And as you say, there's also this possibility that Newcastle get that deal over the line too. And if Manchester United want Sesko, they're going to have to be quicker than for Ollie Watkins, because Newcastle are advanced on the player side. They're in club-to-club talks. They're ready to bid. Manchester United is still having an internal debate and conversation. And as a consequence, that outreach for both Watkins and Sesko is still formative. But I get the impression this is a big week in the pursuit of a number 9, because if it's Sesko, Manchester United are going to have to get moving. If we hear a bit of a lull, it probably means they're looking for proven Premier League experience and they genuinely believe that Watkins might become available. But right now, there's more clarity to the picture. Sesko and Watkins are the 2 names that Manchester United are actively working on.
Well, we'll get into the between us amongst the studio. We'll get into the actual options that we've got in terms of Watkins and Sesko and who we might prefer. Flex, I'm just going to chuck over to you here, though. We talk about those internal discussions about bringing this, elusive number 9 in. Is there a realm? I'm going to pivot here. Is there a realm where Højlund, from what we've seen so far, can he muscle his way into this squad and can he still be an option, or do you consider a striker to come through the door pivotal?
No, I think a striker is definitely pivotal. I think, from what we've seen from the media and a few on the ground here, Manchester United are looking for a number 9. Fact. That is what is happening. So I think the feeling is that, Ruben has seen that position as somewhere that needs to be strengthened. And I think that's the right thing amongst other things. I think Rasmus Højlund was thrown into the deep end really early in his career. Of course, no real choice over or control over the price tag on which he came to us for. And after the first season, I think he actually looked all right. I think there was a large portion of us that was like, okay, this kid's quite raw, but there's something to work with. I don't think we envisioned a season quite like this in the last season, not just for the team, but specifically for him. Because you don't go from looking decent in the first season, 16 goals, you think there's more work to be done, to all of a sudden, it's one of the worst signs. Something's gone wrong in between, which of course we finished 15th and look at what happened to the whole team. So I do feel it for him a little bit there, but I still understand that Manchester United should have somebody more experienced or of a higher level in that situation, either to help him to learn off or of course to play instead. So I think we definitely need a striker for sure. I think we scored 44 goals last season, which is just a ridiculously poor return for us. So for me, yes, absolutely right. We need to be looking for a striker. Benjamin Sesko and Watkins, I like the links. We'll talk more about those individually, but just on Rasmus Højlund, I think he's struggled so much. His confidence is shot. He's got nobody to learn off. He's got no support. And I think it's the right move to look for number 9 for sure.
Yeah, oh no, fair. For the record, I agree with you. Just picking up on something you said there, Flex, and actually I think the viewers will want to hear about this as well, Ben, is Watkins. We're hearing the name float around a bit. How credible is this? How advanced are these talks? Is this actually a possibility? Is it on the table that Man United have an opportunity to sign Ollie Watkins or at least in for him? Concrete?
It's concrete for sure. They held initial talks last week. It all kind of depends on Aston Villa. First of all, they'd have to find a replacement. Second of all, the valuation would need to be met. My understanding is that Watkins is very open to Manchester United, but Villa will have a big say in all of this. And we have to respect the position as of now, which is that Ollie Watkins isn't for sale. But you may remember Alexander Isak has not been for sale for basically the last 6 months. And at the end of the window, is he going to stay or go? We don't know. The door is certainly open for Liverpool. It's the same kind of situation where if the stars align and Villa either have their valuation met or alternatively bring in a replacement, not for sale might not mean not for sale. And I think Manchester United are still relatively optimistic that at the right number and with the right set of circumstances, Watkins may become a concrete possibility. They just have to be a little bit patient, potentially. Some sources, even close to Villa, hint that an offer in excess of 50 million rather than 60 might stand a realistic chance as well, especially if the player drives a move away in any capacity. So Watkins and Manchester United remains one to watch. And it's fascinating debate because if they're looking for long-term value, if they're leaning on the experience and view of Christopher Vivell, who knows Sesko very well, they're going to go down the route of a big outlay for a longer-term investment. But if we look at Bryan Mbeumo, Matheus Cunha, and now Watkins, they're three proven Premier League players that can make an instant impact. And it may be that they pivot because I sense Ruben Amorim is saying, let's just get players for the now. Let's find players that can instantly have an impact. Let's get in starters who have proven statistical, consistent records, meaning if those three combine, and remember, Watkins already has a pre-existing relationship with Mbeumo as well. You can get that instant return to catapult Manchester United from close to the relegation zone to hopefully back into a Champions League spot. So I think this is the debate ongoing at the moment. It's very healthy. You need the freedom to challenge. I think Christopher Vivell is forward planning and saying Sesko is our future. And I think Ruben Amorim is saying fine at the right price, but there's an urgency, and Watkins is the more instant fix.
Yeah, that is quite the dilemma, to be fair. I know I'm going to bring you in here. Let's say we explore this realm where Ollie Watkins becomes a Manchester United player. It's a new manager, it's a new system. Manchester United, let's be frank, struggled last season. Do you think Ollie Watkins will have that instant impact that we're talking about potentially he might?
Yeah, for sure. I think Ben raises a very good point there in terms of already having a bit of experience with Bryan Mbeumo. He'll obviously look for certain individuals amongst that squad to really help him blossom within the team as well. Guaranteed goals. There's not going to be this cooling period, if you like, in terms of allowing Ollie Watkins to get used to the Premier League or English football or anything like that. He's, of course, got all of that in abundance. But I just get a little bit confused with this. I wouldn't necessarily be against the signing of Ollie Watkins. I think he's hardworking, he's an honest player, and I think he will score them goals. But when Ineos took over, we were told, and we've seen through evidence with some of their signings, that they don't necessarily want to go down the route of the Casemiros in terms of signing someone who's already at that stage of his career. He's going to come in for a couple of seasons and then he'll move on. They always said that they wanted to sign players who were younger and to build for the future. So by that logic, Benjamin Sesko would fit that mould. So it does confuse me a little bit in terms of Ollie Watkins, of course, quite close to 30. It would be a signing very much here and now. But then it does almost contradict a little bit the future plans for Ineos. So I think I'm a little bit confused on that regard. But look, Man United need goals and Ollie Watkins scores them.
Yeah. But I hear that reservation there, though, because it does feel like with this transfer, they're abandoning that strategy that they initially came in with. So I take the point. You think about the transfer window, you think about arrivals, but the undertone of Manchester United's transfer window is departures, isn't it? You know, that is pivotal for potentially who we might be able to bring in down the line. Now a name that's becoming a bit more concrete, a rumour that's becoming a bit more concrete, is my boy Alejandro Garnacho. We know we back him every other week. But being linked to Chelsea. So it looks like Chelsea, I know that they've got other deals bubbling along as well. But this is starting to get a little bit more serious, is it?
Yeah, I think it's been serious all summer. And from Chelsea's point of view, they're working at the moment on Xavi Simons and also the defender Jorel Hato. And it looks like both of those Dutch players are going to come in. But just because Xavi joins, it doesn't mean there's not room for one more. And the reason for that is because Xavi's viewed as a number 10, albeit versatile, and can float out either to the left or the right. But then if you look at the left wing situation at Chelsea, Jadon Sancho was returned, another player that Manchester United want to sell. Mikhailo Mudryk can't play at the moment. Tyreek George may be loaned out, and Giovanni Quenda, another left winger, doesn't join from Sporting until summer 2026. So even though Jamie Gittins has arrived, it might be Xavi and a player like Alejandro Garnacho. And this is where Garnacho is waiting because he's open to Chelsea, and more broadly, he wants to stay in the Premier League. So gone are the days of Napoli coming in, at least for now. Nothing active there. Villa is also a possibility, but Garnacho would welcome a move to Chelsea. And that's why the door isn't 100% shut on Nicholas Jackson, just 99% right now, and certainly not something that Manchester United think is likely or they're working on. But could there be a situation where if Chelsea come calling for Garnacho, Manchester United, if they don't have Sesko or Watkins, then at least inquire as to whether the Jackson price has dropped? I wouldn't rule it out, but it's just not deemed by sources as likely at the moment. But a straight deal for Garnacho to go to Chelsea, possible, maybe even a double loan. I don't think we should rule out a loan with a buy option for either club. Again, if Manchester United can't get the other two strikers, do they say Jackson's too expensive, let's do it with a loan and a buy option? And do Chelsea say, if we've got Quenda coming in a year, let's do Garnacho on a loan with a buy option? These things are hypothetical for now, but keep an eye on Garnacho to Chelsea and more broadly Garnacho to the Premier League. That's the player's preference. And now Manchester United are hoping that an exit can be facilitated quickly because that's the fee that's pure profit on the books.
Wow. Well, to say that, I mean, I used to say Garnacho splits the fan base. I think it's probably tilting towards get him out the door and get some pure profit now, which is fair. That's how these things evolve. But we encourage debate in Inside Devil. So please, get your comments in and let's hear your opinion on it. Flex, with that being said, I want to get yours. But more on the fact that selling to a Premier League rival like Chelsea, a player like Garnacho, whatever your opinion of him is, do you think that's a little bit naive from Manchester United, or do you just take the fee as it comes if Chelsea are prepared to buy?
No, for me, I think you take the fee as it comes for Manchester United. We're in a position now where the rebuild is paramount. I don't think we're in a position at this precise minute where we're competing at the top end of the Premier League in this moment, looking at top four. And I think the squad is too unbalanced, maybe in terms of attributes and harmony, for us to be nitpicking at, don't really want to sell to him, don't really want to sell to them. So I think, especially with Alejandro Garnacho, where the decision's been made, whether rightly or wrongly, that he's going to be departing the club. He's somebody who represents pure profit. So if you got a 40, 50, 60 million pounds for him, the way you can amortize that over a period of time is it's not just that singular fee, because he represents pure profit, which is incredibly valuable to Manchester United, especially in this window when we're trying to rebuild. In essence, Alejandro Garnacho, for me, is our most sellable asset. And I know that sounds a bit transactional, and I know that might hurt your feelings, Ryan, but
I'm with you.
It's the situation we've got to, right? I think those conversations of whether he should leave or shouldn't are completely irrelevant now because he is leaving. Although Ruben Amorim has said, listen, if these guys don't get moves, I'm happy to have them back. That's just a ploy in front of the cameras, right? We all know what's going on. So I think because we're in that situation, we need to be somewhat ruthless. We need to be trying to sell. Of course, Ben, did you say don't, rule out the possibility of loans, etc., and anything can happen in the transfer window. But something that will suit us better, of course, will be to sell the player for a significant fee and reinvest that into the squad. So the fact that it's Chelsea, I wish Garnacho the best, to be honest. I'm not one of these Man United fans that doesn't think he's very good and think he's just purely overrated. And as soon as he leaves United, he's going to be quite mundane and average. I don't see that, especially actually if he stays in the Premier League and goes to somewhere like Villa or does go to somewhere like Chelsea. So no, I'm not too concerned with it could be Chelsea that he goes to. If I could absolutely choose, yes, I'd probably, off the top of my head, I'd rather him go to Atletico Madrid or I'd rather him go to Chelsea. But it's not Napoli. But it's not a deal breaker for me. What's more important to me is that Manchester United make the transaction, which in turn gets us back to talking about striker incomings and number 6 incomings and strengthening this squad that really needs to be better. So we can even be mentioned next to the club world champion. So we can even be spoken about next to Villa and so on and so forth. So for me, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, no, look, I hear you. We may revisit some of these topics once Ben's left us. With that being said, I know your time is precious, Ben. Just very quickly, because there'll be Inside Devils viewers that really want me to ask this before I let you go. There's some alarm bell positions, goalkeeper. Some people think midfielder, like myself. Anything there? Any developments in those areas at all?
So Kobbie Mainoo, Manchester United are calm about. I know we've heard some suggestions that Tottenham are going to enter that race. I still think Mainoo wants to stay at Manchester United. Manchester United want Mainoo to sign a new deal. Casemiro, they might be open to offers to because it gets the wage off the books. They've looked at budget options in midfield like Wilfred and Didi. Not necessarily names that would overly excite the fan base, but again, proven Premier League experience, and he has a 9 million relegation release clause. So if they add a midfielder, could be a young name or maybe someone with Premier League experience at the opposite end of the extreme, but much cheaper than the kind of attackers they're going for. And then regarding goalkeeper, if they stick to their original plan, it will be a young number 2. That's where Sene Laarmans comes in, as we revealed on talkSPORT, and talks there are ongoing. Then they tried a loan offer at the other extreme for Emi Martinez. If they go down that route, it means they've changed their mind, and instead of bringing in a young goalkeeper to compete with Onana over time, they want a defined number 1, and that's where Emi Martinez and talks have been ongoing. Villa won't sanction a loan. That was a very audacious and speculative bid, but there is a possibility that Manchester United, in talking over Watkins, also continue discussions over Emi Martinez. The challenge there is he's got 3 years left on his contract, so the asking price is kind of 35 to 40 million, unless it drops significantly or there becomes an option somehow for like a loan with a buy option or an obligation. I think Manchester United will have to walk away. So Emi Martinez is not looking too likely at the moment, but the interest is genuine, and Sene Laarmans is open to a move. And it wouldn't surprise me, after all of the clamour and noise around established replacements for Onana, if they actually stick to their original plan and bring in a young goalkeeper. And that's where Laarmans is still the one to watch.
Wow. Well, there we have it. You heard it here on Inside Devils. Ben Jacobs, thank you once again for joining the show.
Cheers, guys. Always a pleasure.
What's the position as it stands right now? Obviously, it looks like we're advancing this number 9 talk. But what is the position you think that Manchester United need to address right now? Or at least by the end of the window, it has to be filled.
Yeah, for sure. Look, I think it goes without saying there are several areas, but if I had to be pinned down to one area, for me, it would be a midfielder. I think the main stem of issues for Manchester United over the last few years, stretching back over several managers, is this gaping hole almost in midfield. It just seems, for all of the positive build-up that we sometimes see with Manchester United's forwards over the years, or, you know, even at times some very solid defensive performances, it almost seems to be always undone because there is such an ease for opposition to just transition straight through that midfield and make a defensive issue right through to an attacking option for the opponent. So I think a midfielder is imperative. I think someone who can really stabilise and really give essentially not just the defence a little bit more confidence, but also the attackers as well. I understand we're in an era of pressing and you've got to really try and get the ball as soon as you lose it. You know, the 5 or 10 second rule, once you've lost it, get it back within 5 or 10 seconds. I get all that.
Yeah.
But there does need to be some time for the attackers to reserve energy for the attacking.
Yeah.
So I think a midfielder, not just necessarily for tactical purposes, but also for the benefit of the attackers as well, there needs to be someone in there with some legs, essentially. So yeah, I'd say if I had to have just one more sign-in, I think it's got to be midfield.
So just to be clear, you would prioritise a midfielder over bringing in a number 9 right now?
Yeah, because ultimately we saw quite a good and positive run of form just before his injury with Joshua Zirkzee. I'm not saying he's the answer at all, but we saw that he can provide something a little bit more dynamic, shall we say. Rasmus Højlund, I think, not necessarily the jury's still out, but we understand that it's become such a difficult time for him. I'm probably in the camp of saying that forever it will just not be at Manchester United in terms of really reaching his potential. So yeah. I understand that, but you look at the players that Manchester United have brought in, Bryan Mbeumo and Matheus Cunha, they bring goals in, they bring the attacking prowess, which will ultimately allow the forwards to feel more confident in terms of having more opportunity, having the chances in front of goal to put the ball into the back of the net. I think with the midfield, you can have all of the attackers in the world you want, you could have good defenders as well, but in the heart of that midfield, if it's so easy for teams to just transition right through, then ultimately the work of the attackers and the defence is essentially redundant. So I think a midfielder, and it's not by a massive margin, but I do think a midfielder is imperative for Manchester United.
Fair. I'll pin you down to an answer there, so fair play. Flex, what about you if I throw the same question your way? Are you of the opinion that that's the same, or are you thinking Manchester United prioritising the striker, they're doing the right thing?
It's so hard. I honestly, guys, keep pivoting from week to week.
I think we all do.
Because that's how important both of these positions are. And I actually see arguments from both sides. And I've been saying a number 6 is just so important. And then I kind of flip it and say, we've struggled so much at number 9 and the potency up that end of the pitch that, the ball doesn't stick. It almost comes back every time, which puts more pressure on your midfield anyway, because your moves keep breaking down. But you add Cunha and Bruno into it, it does help. I think a number 9 is imperative because the pressure that's put onto the number 9, the pressure of delivering goals as that centre forward is just so ever present at Man United, and that has been our biggest problem, scoring goals. When I think about it now, as you ask me, if Ugarte can improve a little bit in terms of, he's always going to be a good ball winner. That's what he does.
Yeah.
But in terms of on the ball, of course, there's some wanting. But also you've got to look at your 3 central defenders, right? Your 3 centre backs. Because actually I was doing some stuff, spoke with Ryon actually the other day, and he brought up a good comment. So I'm going to nick it and bring it here actually. It was quite good.
Do it.
But he was talking about the 3 centre halves and saying, if they improve and understand when to step in to add that protection to the 2 in front in midfield, a lot of what goes wrong can actually be alleviated when you play that back 3, because it's all about the one who's tasked with having to step in and go and be strong and fill in as that extra central midfielder, which of course you get nightmares if you think it's going to be Harry Maguire having to step in and play that high. But if you look at sort of maybe Aiden Heaven and Lenny Yoro and even Alessandro Martinez when he's back in there, they're really aggressive and quick and on the front foot. And in Ruben's system, he has emphasis on one of those central defenders stepping in there to add that extra protection. So a lot of what we're seeing of why we're so poor in midfield isn't always just down to one singular thing, that Ugarte's just not good enough on the ball or Casemiro's too slow. If the team as a unit is more compact and knows the cues and the triggers of when to jump, all of a sudden you don't have those big gaps in central midfield, which makes that more of a sort of easier situation to deal with overall if the team is set up better in terms of tactically. Yeah. So then I go towards the number 9. I go, actually, that's a good point. Then I'll probably say number 9 is probably more important if we can fix the things that I just brought to the table, which made me look at it different. So do you know what, it's Flex? Still very, very close.
It sounds like, because you've got your fingers on a pulse over there. It sounds like the pre-season because you've mentioned Ugarte there. Is it changing your mind at all about this?
I still think, listen, I think Manu has got a lot to improve on. He did speak to the media after the game against West Ham, because he did have a really good game against West Ham. Yeah. And the way in which he had that aggressive nature to win the ball back. But one of the things he said, what Ruben was demanding from him, was to get the ball forward quicker, recover the ball as quickly as possible, but also, progress the ball quicker. And we saw that from him. Yes, it was against a West Ham team that's in the making and it's pre-season, etc. But there was a little bit there, and I just get the feeling, it's just a feeling, that there's an acceptance that he can improve in that position, and us as a unit can improve in that position. Because the number 6 is still being looked at, by the way. It is, 100%, that's a fact too. But I do know that number 9 seems to be the main priority now. And when it was broken down to me like that, I do kind of see how, but because I am with Anil on this. Like, it's, for me, I worry for Bruno in this, because if you put Bruno to partner up with any of the central midfielders we currently have, that's not a natural fit. In a 3-man midfield, we could have got away with it. In a 3-man midfield, I think Ugarte is good. In a 3-man midfield, I think Kobbie Mainoo would be fine in there. But this is a 2-man midfield, which is why if we don't have those 3 centre-halves doing what they're supposed to be doing, or the wing-backs, which, like I said, they're out of the equation. They're high and wide. When we've got the ball, they are wingers. They're gone. So that does expose the 2. If we don't get that right, you can pair Bruno with anyone in this midfield, and I don't think it particularly works too well against top Premier League opposition. But who's to say, like I said, if the team improves tactically with understanding when to go, when not to go, when to step in, when not to step in, all of a sudden we can look more robust just off improving the understanding of the system rather than having to bring in new personnel. But I would say, to give you an actual answer,
Go on.
I would say just about striker, like just. And then ask me next week and it's going to go back to central midfield again.
So it's 1-1. I obviously said midfielder, Flex. You said striker, Ryan. You get the.
I get the deciding vote. I am going to say
goalkeeper.
Let's spice it up. I'm going to say midfielder. And make it 2-1. Sunday saw our first game and victory of the US Tour with a 2-1 win over West Ham. Bruno Fernandes he scored the brace, didn't it, in front of over 80,000 fans at the MetLife Stadium in New York. Let's stick with you here, Anil. Who stood out for you in that game? And I have a feeling you're not going to say Bruno to me, are you? But who is it that stood out for you?
Yeah, we can discuss Bruno Fernandes in great detail and length. I think, do you know what? In general, overall, I did like to see just slight differences in terms of the players understanding a little bit more what they're required. I thought the wing-backs were getting into better positions, not necessarily perfect, of course, it's still pre-season, still early days. But I did like to see that they understood that their job is to make the most of the space going forward, which would, of course, overload, put the defensive team on the back foot, and hopefully allow some pockets of space almost. So I did enjoy, in general, the formation in terms of the players understanding a little bit more what they were supposed to do. I think with Bruno Fernandes, look, I know and I understand, you know, the people that follow me on social media will understand that I'm not his biggest fan, but let's park that to one side. I don't want.
Should we park that, Flex?
I don't want.
Great. We shouldn't park it. We should all unfollow Anil. That's what we should do.
Okay, well, if you haven't unfollowed me already, you definitely will after what I'm about to say, Flex. Look, I think in this system, I was just talking there about in terms of, you know, it's good to see the players seemingly understanding a little bit more what they want to do. But I'm sorry, but Bruno Fernandes does not fit into the Ruben Amorim system. He's a singular 10 who enjoys the whole of the play to go in and through him. You've signed players like Cunha and Burmo for the price tags that they were. They're not going to sit on the bench. So they're going to occupy the two inside 10s or however you want to shape it up, which would then obviously lead to Bruno Fernandes dropping deeper in order to get him into the team. Now, you are going to expect, very similar to what everyone did with Casemiro, expect him to, at the, not quite the twilight of his career with Fernandes, but at the latter stage of his career, to try and implement a whole different role to what he's been used to throughout his career. Look at what that's done for Casemiro's street cred almost, you know. People are criticising one of the best players of a generation in terms of being in midfield because he couldn't simply get across the pitch. Now, if you have Bruno Fernandes in that deeper role next to a midfielder, Flex, you did say it a little bit, and I agree in terms of you can put anyone next to him and it won't work. And that's simply because Bruno Fernandes does not play in that role. And it ultimately leads me to think,
what do you do with him then? What do you do with Bruno?
But this is the thing. If you sign Mbeumo and you sign Cunha and you know you want to keep Fernandes in the team, then it does raise question marks. I'm massive fans of both of them new signings respectively, but it just simply does not make sense because you have Fernandes, who everyone tells me is irreplaceable. Many fans were happy at the fact that they turned £100 million down for him, which for me is quite ludicrous. We were talking and Flex, I just made sure that I wrote down a couple of the sound bites that you said when we were talking to Ben Jacobs. You said that the rebuild is paramount. You said that we need to be ruthless in this rebuild. When a team of any sort come in for any player that has finished 15th for £100 million, that rebuild would have been alive. And unfortunately, Manchester United have said no to that. And you look at the positions that now Manchester United have strengthened in. Say again?
Bruno said no to that. That's what we have to remember with what happened with Saudi. Yes, Manchester United didn't say you're for sale, but at the end of the day, we have a player who's turned down astronomical money to actually remain at this football club, who still have an impact at this football club. And in our worst season, when he started off really poorly, actually, I remember the game against Fulham, couldn't hit a bundle, and he started off really poorly. Who puts his head above the parapet and puts the numbers on the board actually in a turmoil season? What Bruno Fernandes does is prove that no matter what's going on at the club, no matter what the situation, no matter the manager, no matter where you ask me to play, no matter who's struggling for confidence, I will do my job. I will create chances and I will score goals. All the stuff around that, where the manager plays me, the team building around it, not my problem. My job is, as Manchester United captain, is to encourage others to play well, have the right attitude, first of all. And secondly, is to do my job. And the last time I checked what his job role was in his job description as an attacking midfielder is to create chances. And when you look at the numbers and look at the metric, he's created pretty much, not arguably, more than top end, the top percentile of chances in the Premier League and Europe. And he's scoring goals as well. And he's done that consistently since he's arrived at the club. So yes, I 100% think the rebuild needs to be paramount. But part of the rebuild being paramount and thinking what needs to happen is you need to keep your best players. You need to try and keep the players who actually have a consistent impact at the football club. So I do understand. I do 100% agree with you, Anil, that, like I said, I'm actually concerned he's going to become the scapegoat like this before we've even kicked off because, like I said, Ruben's making a decision to put him with people that aren't necessarily the best partners. I don't necessarily think it's because Bruno can't play there. I think the partners that he has to partner up with are an issue. Because if we said Bruno can't play there, how has he managed to play in all these different positions and still have the same output? It's not like Bruno's gone hiding. He's got 2 goals and 2 assists because he's just nowhere near the box. What the data shows us is that no matter where Bruno plays or what you ask of him, he still finds a way to deliver. That's the evidence. That's what it's actually shown us. So I think we need to look elsewhere, more towards Amorim's decisions of how he's going to squad build rather than it's on Bruno Fernandes. And like I said, just with the move to Saudi or lack of, he said, I don't want to go there. He said, I don't want to move.
He wants to play for Manchester United.
I think
it wasn't Man United saying, you're not leaving.
I think the quotes were that he said that if the club wanted me to go, then I would have gone. So, yeah, I think that's more of a reflection on Manchester United rather than Bruno Fernandes. But in terms of the goals and assists, I'm not going to sit here for 1 second and say that he isn't a good player. He's a great player. He is. But my concern is
he's world class, Anil. I've got to say, he's world class.
Yeah, maybe. But then when you know that his price tag is 100 million, if you know his price tag is 100 million, I wasn't so sure of seeing too many other clubs lining up to sign him when you knew that 100 million was certainly a price tag that would have at least attracted Manchester United's interest. No other club were in for him, so he can't be that world class.
Do you know what? For me, Bruno's better in the 10 because I've got to move on. But Bruno's better in the 10 than Mbeumo and Cunha.
So why are they signed to number 10?
Well, obviously, it must mean that Amorim has a plan in mind. He's going to have a look at this realm where Bruno can transition into this deep line playmaker role, and let's just hope it works.
Let's hope so.
Two contrasted opinions. I'm glad we got it.
Any Bruno Fernandes goals next year or any assists, I don't want you happy for him next year.
Kobbie Mainoo, there was some big comments about him before. Amorim said, it's a big season. I've got plans for Kobbie. And Flex, he had a brilliant game, didn't he?
Yeah, he had a really good game. Another one that you think of that you might be worried for in this system, actually, and the plans under Ruben Amorim is, of course, Kobbie. And in contrast to Bruno, like you say, he is like the future of Man United, or we would like him to be. We would like the team to be built around him, or him to have a really influential role. And I think he's had people forget that Kobbie Mainoo still hasn't had a full season of playing football. You know that? Like his first breakthrough, obviously, he got injured against Real Madrid in pre-season, and then he was out until the October, November, then made his debut against Everton and went all the way to the Euros finals whilst winning the FA Cup. So it was an incredible 6 or 7, 8 months for Kobbie, probably less, which doesn't normally happen. Last season, injuries, manager gets sacked in Eric Ten Hag, then a new system comes in, then he's struggling to find his way in it, then he gets injured, then all the priorities just on Europa League and he can't get back into the team. So Kobbie's actually had a little bit of turmoil in what was a great run. So we forget how young he is and that he just needs to, first of all, he needs to stay healthy this year so he's up for selection. I think Ruben Amorim is still deciding where his best position is. He has told us, in pressers, that he prefers playing further forward. He's brilliant with the ball at his feet, which we know. I think he's more suited to one of these inside 10 positions. However, you see him play against West Ham, very small sample size, and it is a friendly. And he was partnered with Ugarte, and he played well. Yeah. And I think is that again? And why did he play well? Why were we good against West Ham? And again, we have to take small snippets to try and turn them into bigger things that we can expand on. Right? The reason why we were good against West Ham, if you watch it back, was again these triggers and these cues of when to press.
Exactly.
And that is more what it looks like how Amorim wants us to play. So everybody was jumping at the right time. Nobody was late into the press. And actually, one of the only times where we were late to the press was that situation where the midfielders aren't backed up by the three centre-halves, and then they break the lines, and then they're in, and Jared Bowen gets the score because we're all running back to our own goal.
Yeah.
If you limit that happening, it does show that maybe Kobbie Mainoo in this system, whether it's a left 10 or a right 10, or the left 6 or the right 6, if the system is implemented better and there's a higher understanding of it, and those cues and those repetitions within the system, that autonomous nature is there to the system, then Kobbie Mainoo is good enough to play in either of those. But I do think he's suited to playing higher up the pitch. Look at the second goal. Everybody goes pressing. The ball ends up at Kobbie Mainoo because why? He's pressing. He's in the right position. Gives the ball to Bruno. Bruno does the rest. So, look, I do worry that if the spaces are too big, we can misprofile Kobbie. I don't think he's just a deep lying 6 who can control the park and dictate play from deep. I don't see him as that sort of player. I'd like to see him further forward. But again, like Anil said, we've just spent 136 million on Cunha and Mbeumo. Could we see a situation where sometimes Mbeumo plays up front?
Yeah.
You know, that opens up the space. Could we see a place where sometimes Cunha might play up front, etc.? And are we getting too wrapped up in he has to start? Some games you can't go all guns blazing and go hell for leather and start Ahmad right wing back, Matheus Cunha and Bruno and Mbeumo and Kobbie Mainoo all in the same team, still attacking. You pull up to Anfield, you might go, tell you what, Ahmad, go on the bench for this one. We've got Dalot right wing back. And I tell you what, Brian, you step out. We're going to go for someone a bit more conservative in there. Mason Mount might start this one. Or there's going to be different plays for different games. But Kobbie, I need him to be an integral part, man, because I do not want us to waste this player. I worry that he's not going to get enough minutes this year, has a fit season, gets to the end of it and says,
I'm going.
Okay, what's going on for me here? Yeah. I don't want that.
I think you're right. And I think you absolutely nailed it there. I saw a bit of that stuff you did with Ryon. That we're getting more and more apparent that everybody has to sing from the same hymn sheet. There has to be a cohesion with the press. We have to all go together, and that's potentially where the disconnect has been. That Bowen goal, for example, is case in point, isn't it? I'll move on to you, Anil. Who's been the standout guy for you this pre-season? Who's been that name where you think, yes?
Do you know what? I think it potentially might be a bit of an easy answer, if you like, but I've just enjoyed so much to see Cunha. Not necessarily just within the team, as Flex already said, it's a very small sample size in terms of really gauging what he's going to contribute. I think there were passages of play in the friendly games where I did see that work rate almost with Bruno Fernandes, that combination, they seem to be on the same hymn sheet. But also in a wider aspect, I think a lot of criticism and a lot of Manchester United's downfall has been the state of the squad in terms of their attitude, if you like. But it's quite unprecedented to see someone go into a side and a squad and seamlessly
own it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Really get involved with it. I think that's so refreshing to see,
There is a refreshing directness to Cunha's game, isn't there? There's, which, look, we've lacked, and it's good to see. And he looks down to earth as well. He was dapsing up Flex over the barrier as well. Flex, that video that went viral, it was all on my timeline. So he looks like a down-to-earth guy and a good character.
He looks good. He looks great. And just like on the ground, I've spoken to some of the United staff here, and they have said, like, behind the scenes, like in the changing room, real driving force already.
Wow.
It looks like he's been here a long time already. He understands his role within the team. There's little clips of him. I don't know if you've seen on social media when he's on the bench, sort of, hyping up other players.
He's one of the boys, isn't he? He's one of the boys already.
And you can honestly feel it. Yes, of course, he's a new signing. He's got the number 10 shirt. He's taking time to give time to fans, etc., and embrace the what's going on here. But just culturally, with the reset we're trying to do and the shift, 100% agree with Anil. He seems like a real good egg. And when you see the narrative of, that a couple of flashpoints he had at Wolves when they're, by the way, in a relegation battle, and he's showing absolute passion and desire and fight, really, to make sure Wolves didn't get relegated, which worked, by the way. I think it's been used to sort of disdain him a little bit. And yes, we'll see in the heat of battle when the true test is when you go to the Anfield and it's difficult. When you go to the Etihad and the Emirates, watch the temperament like then. But I think we're in safe hands, guys. I agree with Neil. I think he looks great. And on the pitch, little flashes. You see him just pick up the ball on a half turn already,
bang,
win a couple fouls. Yeah. Even if the final ball hasn't been there yet, you go, we've upgraded. Yeah. We've upgraded straight away. Sorry for your man Garnacho, but straight away you go, he's an upgrade. He's an upgrade.
And that we can agree on. I'm not going to dig my heels in on that one. I'm just going to quickly, before we move on, give a quick shout out to Dorgu, because I've sat on a few Inside Devils now, right, where I've had to defend him. You know, January signing, young man.
Where's she?
Say it again.
Angelina, where's she? I remember a show where you was defending him passionately again, and you was like, "Oh, and he's just come here. What are we doing here?
Give him a chance. Give him a chance. A young man, you know, essentially learning a new language, learning a new country, learning his teammates, a new system, and he's come into this pre-season, and he looks like a new signing. So it's every so often there's one of those players where you just go, "Oh yes." Here we go. We've already spent the money on him, but it looks like we've got a new version of this player, and all it's taken is for him to bed in. I'm not going to go too early on it, but I've got high hopes for him just based on what I've seen so far, and that is the case in point of what a good pre-season can do for you. So go on, Dorgu. I'm well in your corner. So here we go. You're out there at the moment, Flex. You've got your fingers on the pulse. You've got your ear to the ground. You're repping Inside Devils. What can we expect to see from you? Who are you putting your microphone in front of? What you got going on?
Yeah, well, I've got an interview with Diogo Dalot later on today, so that'd be nice. Down at the team hotel, spend some time with him, see what he has to say about how training is. We want to talk to him about the demands that Ruben's placing on him, get some sort of, try and pin him down to some expectations, what we can expect next year. And actually, you know, this situation I'm talking about with the system and that as well, I think it'd be really interesting to see how he feels about that, about those cues, about what it is that Ruben's trying to get them to do. I've noticed that the players, even though this is Ruben's first pre-season, I have sensed the calmness from the players, considering it was so bad last year.
Hey, that's good news.
It is good news. I was sort of expecting them to be a little bit uptight and, you know, I don't know, maybe not as approachable, but what I am hearing as well here on the ground is that the training is rigorous. And I know there's been a lot of people online that have noticed, you know, certain pictures of the players. And you don't want to buy into it too much, that have noticed that some of them have come back looking really lean, really chiseled, really ready to go. The physicality looks like it's going to improve. And I have heard that there is a big emphasis on that conditioning. Rio caught up with Brian and Boomer, that's out as well. But he said that training has been hard. They're running. They are running, which, listen, Premier League footballers in training run. Okay, great. You know, newsflash. I don't mean it like that, but I just mean it in terms of just because there's this relaxed nature to tour and pre-season, it's also about understanding how important that is. We've got new characters, new faces. We're trying to build a new culture. You have to allow the players to integrate, right? You have to allow them to have that relaxed setting. If you just make it like an army barracks that isn't really replicated back home, you're not going to get that natural cohesion, are you, between the players to gel with their relationship. So no, I'm looking forward to catching up with Dalot. We're going to do that. We're going to bring him to Inside Devils and see what he has to say.
Unbelievable. I can't wait for that. We're going to wait with bated breath. Guys, don't know where the time goes. That is it. That was Inside Devils, sponsored by MUTV on Sky. A must for Man United fans to watch every pre-season fixture live and exclusive. Watch anytime, anywhere. Existing Sky TV customers can upgrade now for just £7 extra a month. Just search MUTV on Sky or go to sky.com/MUTV. £7 extra on a 31-day rolling subscription. Requires HD-compatible Sky equipment and Sky TV subscription from £15 per month. Cancel MUTV on 31 days notice. Terms apply. And we'll see you next time.